Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Now enjoy the Practical Guitarist podcast. You know, it's like when you go on a diet and you need some chips, and you go, you know what, I'm gonna have a little bit of chips, and then go back on the diet.
Rat's Bane and a Tumnus.
And I bought, yeah. So for those who may not have heard, I got a Rat's Bane. I actually got I got a Rat's Bane. I got a Tumnus, and I got
That's some chips, man. That's
the
like
Fender.
$300 worth of chips.
Well, yeah, I figured if I'm gonna go in, may as well get chips, fries, you know, the whole thing, because I'm going back
Yeah,
on
no
the diet.
shit, man. Like you got a steak.
So yeah, and and of course I got that Fender. I figured, you know what, fuck it, I got that Fender amp for practice, but I got to tell you, the thing is slowly becoming a really like a wet dry wet thing I'm looking at. So anyway, which would be cool once I start. So you and I got to talk after this about Easy Drummer, because I really need to start putting some beats down, because that's all that's stopping me from recording some videos. Because we have to do our own music, and I want to
send you my raw footage from my from that demonstration I'm gonna do.
You should.
3 hours.
Yeah, I you know, I'm going back on my diet. But the other thing is, and this is the but, because I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to sell any gear, right? That's the dumb side of things. That's when you start selling it, unless you get everything you paid for it or more. That's dumb. It's just dumb, especially in today's market. I want to talk more about the used market later, but I'm sitting here going, you know what? I'm fucking sick and tired, really, truthfully, sick and tired of the excuse of getting gear is because gear is limiting me. And the gear wasn't limiting me in that I wanted something else. I wanted a sound I wasn't getting. And so I can get it with the Marshall cranked. Okay? I can get it. The problem is I'm gigging with a Fender Blues Junior Tweed. So, I mean, you know, lacquered. So, or the Twin. So, I mean, I would have to take the Marshall, which I don't mind, and the Captor X, so I can bring the volume down. Anyway, so the other thing is, and you and I were talking, I'm looking at a fuzz pedal. I really want a fuzz pedal.
Yeah, you got one now.
But I kind of got it. The Rat's Bane is really, really good. I got to tell you right now that the Rat's Bane into the Tumnus is a thing of a religious, it's a religious experience. You're out of frame, by the way. You're way over.
You man, you gotta.
Do you want me to move the frame? I can move the frame.
No.
I literally zoomed in on your face. Your face is all I have.
Yeah, there's no need. Like I set the shot up perfectly. All you have to do is cut off the green corners and you're done. No craziness.
Well, I'm trying to make it so the aspect ratio of that is this way, but the aspect ratio of OBS pulls everything in. I don't know why.
It depends on how you have the frame set in OBS and stuff. We can talk about that later. It's not a big deal. Yeah. I just won't move, or I can do this and get completely out of the way. And
I'll have to move the frame thing. People will see that I just moved you out of. I literally pulled you off the screen and back in to see how it looked and what it did.
Yeah. So. All right, so I don't care if you bought gear. I'll be honest with you. I'm actually really excited about the Rat's Bane too. It will be on my list of things to get this year. That pedal sounds so damn good in every clip I've heard. And whether you like it or not, Jim, is not really all that relevant to me. And this, the way I'm going to use it's going to be different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What you do with it, I am getting. What's funny, I just want to say this, is I am getting a near like cranked Marshall sound out of that thing, pushing the Tumnus just a little, and the Tumnus is set up with just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the Rat is supposed to sort of emulate old British sounds. Yeah. There is one pedal to do a better job than that though, and that's the Governor.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
And I mean they're governor clones too, but like the Angry Charlie, but I don't think they're as versatile as a rat. So
Right.
they do the Marshall in the box thing, and you've had one. You had the Angry Driver. They
I
do the
did.
Marshall in the box thing pretty well, but they don't do a fuzz. They don't do a light drive, which the rat can do all of those.
That's right. And the way that Wampler voiced it, it doesn't matter whether you have
My
a single.
cat, by the way,
What's that?
it's my
Oh,
cat making a huge noise in the kitchen.
because he heard about a rat and he's looking for it now.
Yeah, he's looking for the rat, probably.
He's like, where?
Well, he's the rat's bane.
He is. So ratsbane literally means rat poison, which is cool. Um, but yeah, and so like I was talking about before, really the only thing that's been holding me back from these videos is the fact that I just can't make a drum beat. I don't know how to do it. I have the stuff and I could drag a snare into a spot, and I could drag a kick drum into a spot, but I want it to have a little bit of life, and it's just I may as well just have like like I'm thinking of like Donkey Kong, and that's all I'm thinking of. It's like just oompa music, only
Do you know what's really
MIDI.
funny? Do you know what's really funny is people when they start doing drum programming the first time, they don't realize like a lot of times it's just hi-hats on 8s or 16s with an open every two notes, and then like a snare on 2 and 4 with maybe a little bit of ghost notes here and there. Some typical, just like look at your drum rudiments like your flams, and just build a beat that actually sounds like some dude playing the drums, and then all you do is you randomize it. I mean, it really is not that hard, and it's more about randomizing velocity than because like people are like, well, it doesn't swing. Listen, you don't play good enough rhythm to know whether it's swinging or not anyway.
I can tell you, I hear a lot of
I'm,
people that I was
just,
out at open mic tonight. I can tell you all about people that don't have rhythm.
I'm just saying. I'm just laughing because I'm not pointing the finger at Jim, but I'm like, I know I've heard people are like, well, you can't program drums because it doesn't swing, and I'm like, Rick Beato did that video where he's like, well, it doesn't swing like the real thing, and then he artificially swings it, and he does it like in such a way that it's super over the top, and it's like, dude, just shut up. Like you've
Yeah,
never done this before in your life. Um,
I
because he records real drummers, right? I mean, he's
right.
probably not doing a lot of program drums,
No,
so
of course not. And
that's not
I
his
don't
thing.
put right. We're not slamming Rick Beato for not. It, he's used to record really good drummers, and I'm sure that if a shitty drummer shows up with the band, guess what Rick does? Yeah, can you come down and re-record this part? Yeah, we won't tell the band. Yeah, I'll give you
I
$1,000 or whatever.
I am willing to bet that there are a lot of dudes in Nashville that all they do is drag and drop drum beats all day long. And you have one of the best drum softwares on the planet for just like composing stuff with
Right,
prepackaged patterns
simple.
and manipulating those prepackaged patterns.
Yeah,
Um, so that's something we can talk about too. But if you want, we can do it in a remote session.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
anyway, there's two big bombshells this week, and I want to cover the first one really bad because I sent it to Jim as soon as actually it was sent by one of the other one of the people from our community, right? And they were like, "Look at this bombshell video. It's like all the influencers, and it's not really all of them. It's the major guys in the guitar community, basically saying we are influencers, and so therefore we get product for free, and we disclose that to you, and then we review that product." And listen, I'm gonna go on a limb here, and I'm gonna say I'm a fan of most of these guys in some way, shape, or form, but
Me too.
like I'm not. These are not the worst offenders. First off, let's be real clear. Although the Tone King is in there, and the Tone King freely admits that in the early days I wasn't disclosing this at all because there was no law against it. And I want to be like, dude, then you should go back and you should label those videos or put something into the comments at least that
You know,
suggests.
that's what Robert Jackson did. He went back and he said, "I'm putting it on all my videos, whether I have it in there or not."
Well, you know what, and that's another part of it. Like I think almost to the point where just having a blanket statement that's part of your comments is enough. But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how the law is situated. We have never had product donated to this show that we reviewed that like we solicited or anything like that. I did get sent the wristbands. I talked about them on the show. In fact, I said I would send them. So if you remember that happened. We've got
And the
pickups to give away.
That's right. And we definitely said that every freaking time. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
we had over a year where we announced about the fact that Nick was supporting the show, and you've still got a shot to do on that. You've still got one of those to do. don't you?
Yeah, I'm waiting actually on my son
I
to
know
pick up some
COVID.
swap out with the
Yeah, I
existing
know
car.
COVID has been a really tough thing on this, and that's why this slowed down. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
go ahead. Go ahead.
but here's the deal, right? So there's a couple of things about this video that were really icky to me. And number one was everybody feels like use their segment. And I would say for the generalization, you watch them all, you'll see who's who.
Yep.
I'm not doing anything wrong. No one disagrees with you not doing anything wrong. However, you presenting yourself as an independent party and not a marketing agency is wrong. Because now I'll say the ones that have a strong brand, like these guys, 60 Cycle Hum, who I'm wearing their shirt. So I'm not divorced from this whole thing. Like I
Yeah, I have a
understand.
60 cycle cycle hum cup. I just don't. Today I had myself.
You didn't have it, yeah.
Because they're going to do the vaccine special this week. So prepare.
Anyway, so that's terrifying. Anyway, because I know it'll be bad on both sides.
Oh yeah, it's going to be way over the top.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend like I don't have a horse in this race in the sense that I like some of these shows, but you can tell the ones that are like they have a really strong brand, and you can tell it's a marketing agency.
Yeah.
Like they make it very obvious that hey, I got this, I received this in. Maybe there's a disclaimer, maybe there's not, but they're going to be real obvious and blunt with you.
60 cycle hum. Ryan does that every time. This company sent me these pedals. Let's take a look at it. Or
And
Josh Scott sent me this guitar. Fender sent me this guitar.
And sometimes you will see in his videos that he's actually buying stuff with his own money.
Yeah.
But, and this is where things get a little iffy, and I'm not trying to be critical of him, but he's got a big Patreon supporter group that I mean, they're funded. And
Yeah.
so when he buys like every one of these budget pedals, that's being paid by their Patreon. And so even though it's not being paid for by the company, like it's worth, I don't know, maybe for the mental health of people who watch those shows, it's worth it to admit like not every guitar player does this. I have money coming to me to make it possible for me to do this
Right.
specifically for that.
Right. It's a fine line, and that's what I was going to get at. So let's take the Tone King, because unfortunately I'm a New Yorker, so hopefully the Tone King would understand that as a New Yorker, I see him kind of like a used car salesman. Because from New York, you go over to Jersey, you're like, hey, give me a break,
Well,
hey,
he's
what's up?
definitely one of the oldest too. So
And he is, and he's been on there a long time. He's been doing it since, geez, YouTube was a baby when he was doing it. I think Google had just bought it or was about to buy it when he started, 2008. So
yeah,
I'm not, again, I'm not slamming the Tone King. But what I am saying is, and he's just an example, okay, is that the Tone King's been around a long time. And if there's anybody who's got a big Patreon, Tone King's got a big Patreon, right? He's got such a big following. Tone King hasn't come out and said, stop using the word Tone King. We're Tone King. So
Yeah.
there's that. And I think it's because of goodwill. He's got a lot of goodwill. Again, we get to that. I don't think, I'll be honest with you, looking at it from my point of view, I've never looked at a channel and said, wow, those guys really love that. They love it so much they bought it. I've never done that. Okay. I've always gone in with, I want someone else to demo this for me because I don't have access to see one or play one myself. So
Sure.
I need someone to show it to me. And I get that. That, I think one of them brought that up. But I think that if you're going to disclose, like you said, you should say, they should say, hey, this channel makes money, I make money. But I think that's almost a given. I got to be honest with you. I think that people probably think we make money and we don't.
Exactly. Which is why I say, but that's why I say this video that they put out is kind of silly because
Yeah,
I think
that's-
this is an assumed thing. But
Yeah.
there's another underlying thing I want to talk about, which I think is
All right.
not an assumed
But
thing.
before you get to the underlying thing, let me talk about the overt thing, and that is this. To me, that video came off like, what's a famous ad company? What's a famous advertising company? There used to be a big one that everybody. But anyway,
Um,
they come across like an advertising company going, "We're not an." Like when did you ever see the shills at Clorox
yeah,
when they said,
it's an
"Oh,
ad company
bleach,
saying
yeah,
it's an
bleach is
ad
good
company
for you."
it's an ad company saying
We're an ad company,
we're an ad company, but trust our opinion.
right? No, you're an ad company. I trust what I hear. Okay. And if I want your opinion, I'll watch it long enough to do that. And I will take your opinion no differently than I would take anybody else's opinion. And if you're not a stranger, I'll take it as a friend. If you're a stranger, I'll take it as a stranger's opinion. And I'll take it as an opinion of somebody who sees a lot of this product. Like if I personally was looking for a reverb pedal, who who better to tell you what a great reverb pedal is than Ryan Burke, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
is an expert, literally an expert on reverb. I would put him up there with anyone. I mean, Josh Scott asked him to come over there to show reverb, to show all kinds of.
Hmm.
This guy is a true expert on that. There are guys, and the Tone King is expert on stuff, and there's different people that are experts on stuff, and to be a fan of their channel. Like when I watch Phil McKnight, whenever he talks about stuff where he fixes guitars, he talks about this is how you fix it, and this is how you do. I want that
I
opinion.
mean,
I want that.
for the most part, I think he's got a good shtick there. I mean, I've seen some things he's doing that I'm like, it's
Right.
kind of questionable, but I've seen that on other channels too, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not surprising. Here's the underlying problem. Yes, all of the things they say in the video are true. It paints them in a positive light, of course, but remember one thing: this industry is not filled with publicly traded, amicable companies. It's created with private builders, private owners, small companies, mostly 15 to 30 person operations. Your 100 to 200 people sales organizations are rarer, and then even rarer still are the big companies like Fender and Gibson who have major financial backing and those kinds of things. Um, the reason why I say this is because if you're Ryan Burke, and I'm going to use him just because I'm familiar with him, but just play along, pretend it's John Doe. If you're
Right.
Ryan Burke and you get a pedal from Volatile Pedal Builder A, and Volatile Pedal Builder A doesn't like the way that you review his pedal, either because you say it sucks, or you say it's not as versatile as it should be, or that there's this other pedal that makes more sense value wise and does the same things,
Yep.
or like let's say the argument of this would be a great one. You should buy this tube screamer over this tube screamer because everybody makes a tube screamer, right? Let's say that that's the situation. So what is Volatile Pedal Builder A going to do? He's going to go, Ryan, I'm not going to send you any more pedals. And then the supply dries up for Ryan to review. And so that doesn't seem like a big problem at first because Ryan's got 80, 90 pedals. But when you consider how close-knit this community is, Volatile Pedal Builder A might be friends with Volatile Pedal Builder B and Normal Pedal Builder C. And so the word starts spreading that Ryan kind of gave me a bad name. And maybe
Right.
Pedal Builder C takes it with a pinch of salt, but maybe he doesn't. And he says, you
Exactly.
know what? I'm not really sure I want to continue that. And so you could see how this could turn into a wildfire real quick of, drying up opportunities
Right.
for Ryan to continue to get free or reduced price product, depending on how you look at it, to do his videos. Now, I'm not going to disclose what Ryan charges. I have a little bit of insight there, but there's there's a little bit of money there. It's probably much
It's
bigger than
not
it
a
was.
lot.
Um,
Yeah, it used to be
when I
75
was
bucks, I
told.
think.
No, it depended. They had different levels,
Yeah.
and it depended on what you wanted to do. But I know at one point, very in the early days, and this is as far as I want to go with it, it was send me the pedal.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not send me the pedal anymore.
No.
But that said, it shouldn't be, right? He's got a platform with 20,000 followers or close to it
And he
of
does not
people
need
that
another
look at his
pedal.
stuff. Right, right. So, and the funny thing is, I don't necessarily know. So things like the Affordaboard, right? That took off for their channel, and I don't think that none of that's been funded outside the Patreon.
Right, right.
So I kind of look at that situation and I go, well, at least most of it hasn't been funded outside the Patreon. I
Right. There
don't
was
know.
one company that sent them their whole line just
Yeah,
recently.
but like when you stop and you think about how that works, it sort of makes sense that he doesn't really care if he's getting product from other people.
That's right.
Now he probably does to an extent, but I don't think it may not be as significant as I'm pointing it out to be here. But for the intents of our viewers, like understand, temper your expectations when you go into one of those things. Judge for yourself, listen with your own ears.
Right.
Realize that maybe the player you're watching and their styles of music that they're well versed in is probably going to help you make a decision about whether or not they can dial in the pedal to get what you're after. And then just, I think everybody already sort of does their due diligence, but also understand, like, I don't like buying pedals based specifically on somebody else's
Right.
demo of it,
Right. I can't tell you
and
how many times I've tried stuff. I mean, okay, I'm gonna name one that I got brought into, the Joe Bonamassa Les Paul. I was like, wow, that thing sounds great. I got it in. It sounded like ass through my rig. It just sounded like ass. And I couldn't get a good tone out of it to save my life. Now, did I try for months? No, but I did have it for 3 weeks. And I felt 3 weeks was long enough for me to tell, Sweetwater that I wasn't impressed. So, I think what you just said, all of that is completely 100% accurate. Number one, I think what happens is we have, how do I say this? We have more older people joining the community than we ever did. Okay, and
yeah, I think so.
yeah, and so and I, even though I'd been playing guitar a long time, was one of those people because I didn't use a lot of pedals. I mean, when we started this, what did I have, 4? Right?
Well, I mean, you told me like the other day that back, probably 2000, what, 2016, around when we started the show, you didn't have PayPal.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
didn't.
to
And
put it in
so,
perspective,
yeah, I didn't trust online. Well, not online banking. I've been online banking for years. See, I told you this is why I wear a hat, guys. My hair does not want to stay under my.
That's okay. Look at mine. I got random strand A up here.
Yeah, I just don't like it when it gets in my face. That's all.
I mean,
So
we got
and I've got this one. It's right here. Yeah, he wants to go. He wants to go. He's like, I'm coming in. You're not coming in, Mister. It's like Tom
the worst
Cruise.
part. What
Tom
people don't
Cruise coming
understand
in
is
there.
when you're wearing headphones for a long period of time and you've got hair like sticking down or whatever. It just
Yep,
it's
it
the
drives you
it, and it drives you
bananas.
crazy the whole show.
Oh, so anyway, this is what I was going to get at is this. So let's say, I think we're seeing more 50s, 60s, and 70-year-olds joining the community than ever. So I'm 50 years old, and as a 50-year-old, I walk in, or 60-year-old, whatever, and I walk over and I go, I want a pedal that does what so and so did, and I'm 50, so it's probably Frampton, or
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s, so it's Cantrell. I want a Jerry Cantrell pedal. And it's like you don't even know how to play hot cross buns, and you're already looking to get Cantrell's. You do realize, and it's hard to tell someone that that's not something you get from a pedal. It's something that
It's not in
comes.
a box. Like you're not going to buy it and suddenly have that
Right.
plethora of
And
things.
we've talked about that. And there's the whole tonage in your fingers thing, which I think is semi
It's
bullshit.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some truth to that. I think people mistake tone and technique. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Tone with phrasing and voicing and all the other stuff, the technique stuff. But there's also that thing about when you're dialing. Like most of your noobs aren't gonna know to mess with their volumes knobs on their guitars, or how sometimes you have to mess with more than just the pedal. The pedal is an ingredient. Um, I had a great Joe Bonamassa interview. I can't remember who the heck he was interviewing. He was interviewing some blues musician I'd never heard of, and I didn't care. And but the point is that this person actually had a good thing analogy, and that was, he said that he looked at it like ingredients in a soup. You have like a stew, and you're throwing ingredients in there. If you have 8 potatoes, then you might need more of something else to offset the fact that potatoes are bland. Or if you have this much oregano, you need it. And so a good soup. He was talking about, what's that guy, Ramsay? Is it Gordon Ramsay? He's talking about Gordon Ramsay and how Gordon Ramsay would taste the thing, and he knew exactly what there was too much or too little of. And I remember it brought me back to when I saw Barry Manilow the first time, when he was talking to, I got to see the sound checks thing, and he had the women, because I don't know if you know this, but on a lot of his early albums, he sang all of his parts, right? So when he got backup singers, he added them to his stage show, and he had them on his stage show. He had all these people that these women are standing behind him, right? And they're all singing, and he was like, he pointed to the one, he said her name, and he said, "You're slightly off." I'm like, how the hell did he know she was slightly off? Everybody else, I mean, I'm sure it's because looking back now, I know he knew her part and everything else, but to know the exact harmony in like he had 12 women on the stage, and he knew exactly, or
Yeah,
8 women. You know
it's
what I
like
mean?
trying to figure out which string is out of tune in a chord.
Right.
Um,
But you've got a sitar, and you're trying to figure out which one of those things is going
mhm.
on. And my point is that
Hard enough with 6.
yeah, but if you take an amp, it might be, oh wait, the amp has too much bass, or the amp has too much gain, or or the guitar is pushing a little too hard, or I'm using a humbucker and I should be using a single coil, and those kinds of things. It's hard to tell somebody who's 40 something years old, who spent their whole life, let's say they were a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and they spent their whole life knowing that kind of thing in the field that they're very good at.
Right.
And suddenly they've got, especially must be frustrating when somebody walks in with like, you know what, I want that Gibson Les Paul standard or custom, and I want this $5,000, and I've only got about $20 or $200 left for my amp. What have I got? What have I got? Just- we've talked
We-
about that before.
We've talked about that. I mean, and that's a realistic thing.
Yeah,
And it doesn't help when you've got these, celebrity reviewers, which
right,
we'll call them, influencers essentially. Um, you know, with the Ferrari sitting behind them.
right.
And I mean, like, what was it, Robert Brown, or no,
Robert Baker,
Brown, Baker.
Baker.
Robert Baker's got behind him, hey, look at
Oh,
my rev and my, and it's like, okay, but obviously most people don't start with that kind of money.
Etsy
And there
pop.
are your reviewers that are on the other side of the fence that, are at the super low end of the market. Ryan does the affordable board, and there's Guitar Max, and other people have done it too. I mean, even Philip McKnight has done some really budget stuff. I take my biggest red flag is when we say super budget and the words good for the money come out, because look, I don't have a problem with saying good for the money. Like, I understand that there's a price bracket, right? But
Right.
I think people tend to hear good and not for the money. And I also think people have an unrealistic expectation of what good for the money actually means. And I can say this because I have played people who have, and some of them are show listeners, some of them aren't. So, I'm not singling anybody out, but I played a lot of guitars where people are like, oh, that's good for the money. And then they hand it to me and I'm going, dude, I can buy a Squire Classic Vibe for like $100 more than this.
Yeah.
That's good for the money. This is, what?
Yep.
Um, and I've had that experience a lot. And like, if it works for you, great. But I'm just saying, like, let's temper our expectations a little bit. Let's be realistic about some of this stuff. And that's what I think. So, like, when you and I had the conversation, I think last week we were talking about the Astrotone fuzz from
Yep.
Analog Man,
Yeah. Analog Man.
and I
Because I
think
was surprised at the price
but
point
there's
on
no,
that.
but there's a lot of hype behind this stuff, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's so expensive." Somebody asked me after your conversation, they go, "How much do you pay for your King of Tone?" And I was like, $270. And they had like this, what?
Right.
I think it's 270 because he doesn't like it's not a $500 pedal from him.
And you got a couple of options on that, right? You got one or two options?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it would have been without the options, what, 240 or 220?
I think it was 270 without option. I think I paid 300 even
Okay.
with
Yeah,
shipping.
that makes
With
sense.
shipping.
Yeah.
But that was the point. Is like it's a $270 retail pedal.
Yeah.
Let's stop acting like that's super expensive now.
Right.
Because there are things that are worth. I mean, look at anything Vemuram puts out.
Right. Oh
I
my
wasn't even
gosh.
aware of the pricing of Vemuram. And now you've got other high end brands in the market. Of course, Strymon's been around forever, but you've got UAD with their pedals now. I mean, it's like I'm not expecting a beginner to go out and buy the Strymon mothership, in
Right.
a custom shop Strat. And we've never been like that on this show, and I'm still not like that. I'm looking at Jim. I don't know if I shared this on the show, but I know I've talked to you about it. I talked a couple episodes about maybe getting a Tom Anderson.
Yep.
So I went and I got a quote, and I don't think I'm buying a Tom Anderson because they're $4,000,
Yep.
and I'm going $4,000 for a Strat that doesn't have the Fender logo on it, which means that it's not going to have the resale value.
Yep.
No, thanks. Don't think I'm going to do that. Would be
Yep.
much better off buying similar parts from Warmoth. I won't get the fancy neck carve, not the neck carve, but the joint. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. And quite frankly, the bolt-on neck has worked in the regular configuration for 50 plus years already. So
you could buy for half that money. You could buy the best freaking G&L on the used market out there.
yeah, I
Just
could buy.
about
I mean,
half that money.
basically whichever one I want. But here's the issue. I have very specific ideas about the neck shape and things like that I want. And since G&L was always built to order, that's going to be kind of a problem. But listen, ultimately, it comes down to I have to find something that's better than what I already have. But the Tom Anderson, like when you get into that end of the market, even for me, being what I would consider a semi-professional, and big capital letters, semi-professional musician, like that's a lot of bread. And I know people at my level who have guitars like that. And quite frankly, I think it's kind of embarrassing. Because, like, you have that much money, and the funny part is they usually have that, and then they have, like,
That Boss Katana.
a deluxe reverb, or and it's like, so
a Fender Pro Junior.
I honestly, so, people talk about buy a really expensive amp and a shitty guitar. And I don't really prescribe that there. I think half and half.
Yeah.
I think if you go half and half, like 2,000 on the guitar, 2,000 on the amp and cabinet, like you're gonna be in good shape. It's gonna be really hard to screw that up. And that's the thing I've realized about my Mark V. People, you can't dial them in. They suck. They're really hard to dial in. Listen to me right now. I can dial that thing 10 ways to Sunday. You put the right overdrive pedal in front of it, and away you go. And right now, if you heard my tone without my drive on, it probably sounds like a wet rag. But turn that drive on, away I go. And I use the volume knob for everything. And I mean, you watched the last live stream, it works. So I don't have a Bogner Uberschall behind me. Although I did get an offer to get traded for an Ecstasy for my my Kemper. And I considered it very briefly.
That is nice.
But well, yeah, it is, but it's 100 watts, man.
I know, and
And
I was saying the same thing. So you and I both talked about this. I'm probably going to go with the small um, Jubilee
yeah, and it's
as my
you know what?
master.
It's a great freaking amp, and I might
I'll
end up with
probably
one eventually at some point too.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I'll get the Jubilee head with the 2x12 cabinet, and that'll be it. Because
You won't
and to
need
be
you won't need the one you've got, the DSL,
no
after you've had that, because
no
that thing sounds really good.
yeah oh yeah that will be a total replacement. The truth of the matter is it'll be a replacement. I'll probably keep the DSL, but I'm going to throw the Jubilee on top of it.
Yeah,
If I
it's
got rid
worth
of
it just to
anything
have
at
it in
that
the house.
point, yeah, if I got rid of anything at that point, it'd be the Twin. But even then, I'm covering my bases. But here's the rub. Here's the generalization. That's $2,000, actually $2,700 for the head and the cab. I probably can get a good enough discount. I might even be able to get into a used one for a little over $2,000, depending on the time frame. But let's
You
talk
look at
about
you looking at the 50 watt or the 25 watt?
the 25 watt.
That's
I,
not. It's not 2,700. It's more like
no, it's 14.
$2,000 even.
Yeah, for that and the cab.
I think so. Yeah,
I thought that the head was 20. The 25.5 was
well, I'm looking it up.
1,400, but I can be wrong. So this kind of rolls right into what I wanted to talk about, and this is where you watch these people who are I don't want to say shilling a product. I joke around a lot, and I know people are starting to take it offensively, and it's not. The folks that are pushing product, and I watch this stuff, and I think to myself, self, because I call myself self sometimes. I'm like, money wise, I I'm watching these guitar
About 20
channels. How
about
much?
2,400 bucks.
2,400 bucks. Okay, 24. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I could probably get myself closer to $2,000. But
Well, their cabinet is loaded with Celestion G12s.
Yep,
So if that's what you want, I mean,
right.
I don't know that I
Otherwise,
would do a 2x12 for that. To be honest with you,
yeah.
I would
Otherwise, I
probably
might get a
25.
bass.
I'd just
I might get a boogie. A boogie. Uh,
it's gonna be similar in price if you're doing a 212.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or I'll just get a 112 cabinet and go from there. I mean, the truth, and I know it doesn't cut it by half, not even close, but
54 pounds.
yeah, it cut a lot of weight. So here's my shtick, my thing. So you take these influencers, right? And this is the message I want to send to influencers as a person who wants to be influenced. Okay, I watched probably before I bought the Ratsbane. I bet you I watched not all the way through, folks. I did not spend this much time watching them, but I
No,
watched snippets of because I only cared about how it responds to because I was looking for something for my humbuckers.
humbucker.
So I wanted to see what it felt like with a humbucker. So believe it or not, I watched Wampler because he was using an Epiphone. He was actually making it sound pretty good. I'm sure he's got different pickups in that Epiphone. I'm just sure of it. But he used an Epiphone. He's using a 335 Epiphone. And I watched some other folks. The guy from Toman with the big hair, Andy or something. I watched him. I watched Etsy. No, not Etsy. It wasn't Etsy. It was somebody else. Oh, Pete Thorne, somebody else. And I was like, wow, these guys are killing it. They're making it sound good. And so I ordered it. I'm not going to tell anybody the price because now, folks, before you think that I'm getting any money as an influencer, I don't. I'm military. Plus, I have a relationship with folks, so I get a decent price for stuff. That does not mean that I can extend those prices or you could get the same prices, but because I'm a retired military person, I get a certain discount in some places, and because I have relationships with vendors, I can get other prices. That's got nothing to do with being an influencer because I don't make any friggin' influencing videos. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not trying to do that. So my video series is coming. We talked about that, you and I. Here's what I'm getting at. So when I do watch them, I had a little problem. I was watching and it was Pete Thorne, and I was like, wow, that sounds really good. And he had an '80s Ibanez Destroyer from like Japan, and I'm like,
Hmm.
that's awesome, Pete, but I have no
No one
point of
else has that.
reference. I have no point of reference. I'm assuming it's a humbucker. It's going to act like a humbucker. But like when Wampler, because I was looking at the Tumnus, and when Wampler showed the Tumnus off, he's got it with this handmade freaking guitar
The
into
built
his
thing, the built.
yeah. Well, no, he doesn't have
That-
a built. He had a You're
I thought he
talking about JHS. He's got the built.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, the one thing the pedal guys, that pedal show, the one thing that Dan and Mick do is they pick guitars that people have. Dan's got a Telly. It's not
I don't
super
know.
great. He's
I don't know, man. Like they're not off.
I know they're
the-shelf
not
guitars
stock.
at all.
I know
No,
they're
they're
not
custom
stock.
shop too. Most of the time, they're really high-end guitars.
Well, see, yeah, and that's my problem.
Telecaster is a custom shop from the '90s, and Mick's like favorite Strat has been customized to all hell.
He's customized that several times, but I think they're probably the closest when it comes to a lot of these folks, because it's not a Sir, it's not a
They grab a
but-
lot of guitars off the rack too,
Right.
And that's another like that's what I was gonna say. They're very good about like, okay, so you think it's the guitar that sounds like this? Here, let's grab this other guitar and do the same thing. And I feel like their videos aren't shilling as much because it's not like, here, let me show you this new pedal. It's
No,
like,
'cause-
here, we're gonna take a look at a variety of pedals that do
Right.
this.
Here's a bunch of fuzzes. As a matter of fact, I watched their Tumnus video, which was with a bunch of other clone clones.
Clones.
Here's something that I really thought was, this is kind of outside of it, and then I'll come right back in. There's a company that's calling their new pedal the Klone, Klone. So if you search for a Klon, you'll find the Klone, because Klone,
Well,
Google
KL
will find
but-
clone
but-
based on
But
Klon.
KLONE has been the community terminology for those pedals for
Well,
decades.
clone. Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's kind of become a what's the word I want when a word
not
goes
dumb.
into, yeah, they're not dumb. And so I'm a little bit, I'm like, it's a little disingenuous as far as what you're doing. I'm not saying they're stupid. That's for sure. That's a pretty smart move. I'm just saying that it
Can I ask a
smells
question?
of a little too hard. Probably a little too
So
hard.
this is your first Klon circuit. You
Yep.
watch the Klon video from them.
Yep.
How different did you find the different Klon pedals that they shot out? And I
I
don't know
got-
which exactly ones they used, but like
They used
just,
a lot.
just characterize like how massively they were from one another.
Not very. That's true. I mean, there was a couple of them. Here's the thing that I found, especially because they did a Rat shootout too, but they did it long before the Rat Spank came out.
Yeah, the Rats are quite different.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Some companies, even though Mick and Dan are like, oh my God, I love the sound of that. Must have sounded better in the room because it sounded like ass through my freaking stereo. I was like,
And they're after different things too. That's like what you got to remember is when I hear people saying, "Oh, this is such a great distortion," but a lot of time I'm listening to them going, "Man, there's a lot of 3K there." Like,
yeah, or it sounds broken, but it sounds too broken. You know what I mean? Sounds like the amp should be thrown in the trash, broken, and not to the point that it sounds good. To the point that it sounds, it's kind of like a
good
dog.
sound for that one single part on a record somewhere, and they can
Right,
only
right.
get on for that one specific chorus.
Which is fine if you're buying something for a studio, but if you're buying something for use, and it kind of made me laugh because it reminded me of my dog. He's got such an ugly face. He's cute because he's a pug, and
Right.
so he's got this cute little pug face,
Mhm.
but but it's also looks like somebody caved his head in. He's I always call him two things because he's got a little twirly tail, so he's pig on both ends and dog in the middle. But so uh, getting off of that, what I'm saying is that I like the fact that they showed me 8 different ones, even though the one I liked the best was the regular old Proco Rat. And that's what's funny.
Yeah.
So many companies. They had JHS and they had a
But it's a vintage Proco Rat too, the LM308 loaded original.
See, that's the problem. And he even said you can't get your hands on this, so that's why people are cloning it. And so what I also found funny about this, and it's a generalization. I don't want people to get caught up in Jim's talking about rats. I don't want that. Is sometimes companies try so hard, like Wampler. Not to blow Wampler's horn here. Wampler does one thing. He's like, okay, I'm going to make a rat clone, let's say, or the Tumnus, which is a clone, right? And I'm going to make it sound like a clone or a rat. I'm going to make that. What you want is a rat or what you want is a clone, here it is. But if you click this little switch, or you push it just a little bit harder here, or you dial this back a little bit.
He steps back from the archetype. And he says, how can we make this do something else?
Right. Where you can still, but the problem with the other ones that I saw, a lot of the other ones, not all of them, I think JHS did that too with their rat clone, is that, and I know they did it with their clone, but he pulled that back because supposedly the clone guy was going to come back out and he didn't, and he hasn't come back out with his clone.
He has. There's a KTR. That is a clone.
Oh, the KTR is back on them. Okay, he had talked about
the KTR never disappeared. They do it in a run. They do it in small runs.
Oh, they make it in runs. Okay, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, and then the the clone actually showed up. It was a limited run for charity.
That's right.
So
that's the one he pulled off, and you can't get it. That's like the Paisley Deluxe. They did a thing that's only.
Yeah. Well, he brought it back. He brought it back, and he made like 50 units, and they were going for like $5,000 a piece or some crazy nonsense.
Of course, because a clone goes for $5,000 a piece.
Well, they don't though. They go for about $2,000, but
yeah, they don't sell as high as.
Right now, they're hovering around $2,000, and that's if you sell on eBay or Reverb. If you sell to a store, you're going to get
So here was the problem I had with a lot of those pedals is they didn't do what the Rat does. I understand doing more. I understand doing better. But you should still be able to do the Rat and then do more. Because if you're basing it on the Rat, or you're basing it on the clone, or you're basing it on the, I don't know, the fuzz face, right?
Did they have that Petty John Rat?
Yes.
You dirty rat or something like that. I don't know what it's called. The Petty John one is pretty cool, but it's not meant to be. It's built on that hard clipping Rat circuit.
Yep.
So the problem,
and it sounded good. It sounded good.
Everybody says, and the Rat. Let's pick on the Rat for a minute. Everybody says the Rat is the specific thing.
Yep.
And in terms of the circuit, like the Rat's very much like a Big Muff or an overdrive pedal on the inside. It has some of the same principal features that the other ones do. So it's very easy for you to say, oh, it's a Rat clone, when in actuality, it can be tweaked to do an endless amount of things. For example, Brian Wampler himself talks about modding metal zones into Rats.
I'd love to take my metal zone, send it to him, and say, make a Rat on this.
Yeah. I
take my shitty metal zone. And I don't mean shitty because it's a bad pedal. I mean shitty because you've seen my metal zone. It's beat to hell. Take my metal zone. Take your time. Send it back to me when it's turned into a Rat because I want it to be a Rat.
Right.
Because I put my quote unquote affordaboard, which I'm trying to build, is just all the pedals I'm not using. So I'm sitting here with like, I had to make room on this board, so I had to take the Seymour Duncan that somebody gave me off. I felt bad about that, but I took it off. And so I want something where I can put that with the Big Muff, with my SD1, because the SD1 is another one that really, really screams. You can make it sound good. And the metal zone. Or like maybe somebody could say, hey, Jim, all you got to do is get your soldering iron out, put this here, solder this to this and this to this, and you're done. I was watching, we think about mods with pedals all the time. We think about that all the time. And I was watching a documentary on Netflix about gaming. And of course, they went all the way back to the arcades. There were guys
Yeah,
building mods for arcade
yeah,
games.
and
So
selling
that,
them,
yeah, and selling them to the arcades,
making lots of money selling them too.
making millions. Because what it did was it made the game harder. Because once you figured out the pattern, Pac Man was one of the big ones. Pac
Yeah,
Man had a pattern in the beginning. And so these guys figured out this mod. And of course, back then you couldn't upload new software. So the whole thing was based on that chipset that you already had in place. These guys had these mods, and they figured out how to randomize and do all this other stuff. These were 3 engineers from MIT,
yeah, they were
and
building them in their dorm room.
they were building them in the dorm room. It was
Yeah,
such a cool
yeah.
thing. But I was like, wow, those are pedal mods, only they were this big. I mean, literally, I'm doing the
Mhm.
Madonna thing here, but yeah,
Yeah, but what's going on in a pedal is a lot less significant than what's
yeah.
going on in some of those devices.
Sometimes
I
they're
would
just
say
putting a
light bulbs sometimes have more components.
Yeah, sometimes in a pedal it'll be. I haven't opened up my Blues driver, my Wampler modified Blues. I'm thinking about just taking the pedals, the Metal Zone, my SD1, sending them to Brian and saying, "Hey Brian, if you ever get a bug up your ass, could you mod these and then just charge me and I'll send them back." Because then I'd love to see what he does. Just do something with them. Do whatever you want to do with them. I don't care. Surprise me and send them back. Because that would be cool, just to see what he does. I'm not an engineer, electrical engineer. I can change stuff out and I can follow instructions, but I don't know enough to like not know that I'm going to kill myself by removing the wrong ground or something, which I doubt very much you can do with a pedal.
No, you can't do
But
that with a pedal, but there's no high voltage going through a pedal.
yeah.
All right. So let's be real here. Let's stop for a minute because we've been talking about the Ratsbane. I just want to mention a couple things. The Wampler pedal video is outrageous. If you haven't watched it, check it out. Honorable mention goes to Pete Thorne's video is really good. And then what's the other one that I absolutely was like,
There was
yep, Mike Herman's.
yeah.
If you haven't watched Mike Herman's video, that's the other one to watch. Because he puts it through its paces. Honestly, like for me, I have problems with my Sunface because the battery's always dying because I don't have the battery mod done to it yet. I am gonna get that done. Just haven't set my pedal off yet. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the Ratsbane to put it on my board in the interim, so that I can have it in the spot while I'm doing my thing until the Sunface comes back to me. And then when it gets back to me, I'll probably move it after the King of Tone. But I think as a jack of all trades pedal, I mean that I honestly like as long as you only need one dirt, the Ratsbane's got you covered because it can do everything from like the super muffed out thing all the way down to regular drive and clean, clean drive type stuff. I think it's like honestly, it's one of the most versatile pedals I've ever seen, and that's saying something because I think the Rat in general is a pretty versatile pedal, but like this takes it to another level.
Yep.
We were talking about the JHS, so the JHS does the kilt. So the kilt is actually a Bixonic Expandora. Bixonic, I think.
Bixonic.
It's an Expandora, right?
Yeah.
And so the Expandora has switches on it that take it into different territories, but it's basically loosely based on the original Rat circuit. And the kilt is like an update of that. And then the Ratsbane probably has some very similar features to the Expandora in that it has selectable gain levels, which is one of the things that the Expandora does. But he's using a really interesting chip if you're into the geekery of this stuff. The original Rat was a LM308.
Yep.
He did not source LM308s for this. It is some other higher fidelity chip that he's using. It's not a chip; it's an IC, which is a integrated circuit. But it is a chip, but it's it's a specific kind of thing. It's not a microchip or anything, or it's not a microprocessor or anything like that.
Right.
And they sourced these ICs that are different. And he basically says like it's socketed, so if you really want to put an LM308 in there, go ahead. but I don't think anybody will be wanting to put LM308s in it because it sounded damn good out of the box. Anyway,
Are you talking about the kilt?
so, no, the Ratsbane.
The Ratsbane.
The
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
I thought
It's
so.
not
Okay.
LM308s, and I don't know if the Expandora is either. It may not be. And I don't know whether the kilt is. I don't think either of those are 308s because those are mass-produced pedals. Or at least they were. I don't think the Expandora is produced anymore. Could be wrong on that. But you know what's interesting? So all three of those companies decided that was like really versatile, and built it into their pedals. I think his might be the only one where the filter control operates properly, which is
Yeah,
backwards.
yeah, yeah. So for those who don't know, the filter control is supposed to operate so that when you turn it up, you get more bass. It sounds a little flubbier and starts to get a little fuzzier. And then when you turn it down, it gets more treble. And
It's a high pass that operates in reverse. Basically,
exactly,
that's what it
high pass
sounds like.
filter. Yeah,
Yeah. Um.
it's probably a low
Yeah.
pass filter.
Yeah. I think it's a low pass
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
because it always lets lows through.
because it's letting more
Um.
lows through.
I think we've talked enough about influencers. I think we've talked enough about the Ratsbane. I am kind of curious as to what your thought on the clone is.
The Tumnus.
The Tumnus.
All right,
Yeah.
this is coming from someone who does not know or care what a clon does. Okay, so we're gonna start right there. I don't even know what a clon does. I don't know what's special about a clon. I know people who use it, and I know people love it, and I know people go crazy for it. I just saw a funny video that Music is
I
Win
want to
did.
burst your bubble so bad and tell you what a clone is good for, but
No,
I'm
that's
not going
okay. You're gonna in a second. I want you to. But here, it's funny because Music is Win did a joke thing where he paid JHS the $500,000 and bought his his. You got to see the video. It's actually pretty funny. At first, I was like, and then I said, no, this is just a complete joke. It's obviously a joke, but I never believed it for even a second, not even when I saw the title. But I thought,
Yeah.
is this going to get funny? It got funny real fast. It got really funny.
Did he
He's
did
got-
he actually buy a clone though?
Oh, he did, but he only paid a couple hundred, yeah, or a few $1,000s for it. I think he paid on the high end. He even admitted he overpaid for it, but he jokes around that he got a hold of JHS, and Josh Scott is sitting in like this. You can tell he's in a green room, but they got like a bar, and he's like, "Yeah, hey, Little Wayne, come on in." He's got a drink in his hands, like he's drinking off the drink, and and then he's like, of course, poor Music is Win had spent all of his money and all of his savings. His wife left him. He had 63 cents in the bank, and all there is he's in an empty house with an empty room and a clon and his guitar, and he's like, I guess I better love the clon. And he plugs in. Then he's like, and then he's playing. And he's like, and then of course Josh Scott's like, what do I hear? What do I hear from the ether?
Yeah, I hear a clone.
Yeah, and then he goes, "Oh my God, I got to buy my pedal back. I'll give you anything. I'll give you anything. I'll give you Bitcoin." No, I don't want Bitcoin. I want the clone.
I don't know. I'll give you if you give me 1 Bitcoin. I think I'd be willing to part with my clone.
I think so too.
$50,000 sounds
Yeah,
good. about good right now.
$50,000. Yeah, it sounds pretty.
It's worth about 48.9, I think,
Is
at
it?
the moment.
Is it?
But
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that because I've been watching my investments daily.
So, yeah, I'm waiting so I can afford one. So anyway, the video is pretty funny, but the point is, I watched it and I went like this. I have no idea what part of the tone the clon did. And so my clon, I'm using it like, well, my Tumnus, I'm using it like a quote unquote transparent overdrive, where I'm giving it that little bit, but I know that transparency is not transparency, and that's a big issue we can get into in a second.
It's not a transparent overdrive.
There's no such
first
thing as
off.
transparent. Unless
And
you're
it is
using just
so far from transparent.
yeah, it's like a million miles from trans. But people call these things transparent overdrive.
I'll explain why when we get there, but it's a myth.
So
you want
I
transparent drive? Get a boost.
get a boost. Exactly. Get an EXP boost. What do they call it? The Sonic Boost or whatever. And you just SP, the EXP SP. Just there you go.
Are you talking about the exotic?
Exotic. Yeah, the exotic.
No, that's an EP booster, and that is
EP,
not
that's it. EP.
a neutral booster at
Nope,
all.
it's not. That's what I'm saying. They're not. There's none of them that you can't boost and not be. But we can go into why that is. Once you boost, you change frequency response all across the board. But anyway, so it's why an amp sounds better turned up, man. It's
Wait,
just
you mean the Vertex boost is not? Never mind. Back to
no, no. Zvex would
Hey,
not.
no, it wasn't. No, Zvex didn't make that. The Vertex is the Rig Doctor.
Oh, it's the Rig Doctor. Oh, don't get me started
Yeah.
on some of his videos. I agree with most of what he says, and I agree with probably 100%. But I'm not
I
spending the
like
kind of
some
money.
his stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I like some of his stuff. I think he's got his head really far up his ass on a few things.
Yeah, he's
that-
he's sniffing his own farts in some places.
Well, and I think he thinks his farts smell a little bit better than they do too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. His farts don't smell that good, but the the thing I'm using it for is to give me it to me it rounds things out a bit, so I can boost, I can kick it a little bit harder, and I can round out the sound. Does that make sense to you? Because the Les Pauls are mid, they've got a lot more mid, right? And so,
Well, actually, I think they're
humbuckers.
kind of balanced, to be honest.
Yeah. And so,
So
what
that's kind of the misnomer about all this stuff. But go on.
yeah, and so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pushing a little harder, and even things almost at 12 o'clock, which they're a little tweaked, here and there, but pretty close. It it just gives me that little bit, but it I don't know what it is because I'm not an engineer and I'm not a sound guy, and I don't know how to express that this sounds like I've got all my frequencies like it was like this, and now it's like this, like rounder. Does that
Yeah. Yeah. No.
make sense? But instead of being like here, it ballooned. It's almost like I
Mhm.
blew up a balloon, but I gave it a little helium. But I still
Yeah.
got it tied to a string.
So, all right. So I'm gonna give you my impressions of the Klon, and I'm gonna preface this and kind of try to explain the whole like what they call the neutral overdrive thing, like the transparent overdrive thing, and why I think that's a myth to begin with. We already kind of explored that, which is that anytime you boost a signal, you're going to mess with the signal, meaning it's going to hit the amp differently.
Yep.
It's going to cause the thing to compress differently. There's no such thing as a neutral boost. You can get close. I mean, and I think the Vertex, I think the TC Electronic Spark aim to
Yep.
get as close as possible. They're not emphasizing treble frequencies. They're not emphasizing bass. The Klon gets used as a clean boost a lot, and it has something to do with the tone control mixing in like a clean blend, and the gain control mixing in a clean blend. I think it's the gain control. I don't think it's the tone control. I could be wrong on that. It's been a while since I've used a Klon. But basically, there are two schools of thought. One school is use the Klon with the gain up, right? And use it like a traditional overdrive. And then the other school is to use it as a clean boost. And the clean boost camp is like, oh, well, it's neutral. It's a neutral drive. There is no such thing as a neutral drive. What it does, in my opinion, is like what you said. It does have a mid hump, but that mid hump is very broad across the spectrum. It is not like a tube screamer where it's very focused. So it's a lot less audible. But because of that, when you kick it on and you have the volume at, over unity, it's going to hit your amp differently. It's going to hit it as though it were up louder, and the bass and treble were rolled off in the higher and lower regions. So to you, it sounds like it's just your guitar, but more of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's what
Right.
people say
That's-
when they
that's-
talk about the Klon.
Right.
And it's really just a really broad kind of tube screamer style clipping, where and I don't say clipping, but just the frequency response of the pedal in general is broader. And I think there's some stuff going on with the output impedance on it as well. I am not an engineer when it comes to this stuff, but I can tell like there's definitely different stuff going on in a Klon than goes on in a tube screamer in terms of gain. I actually preferred my Klon gained out. I did not like it as a clean boost. Now, today, I would probably have a different opinion of that because I'm using the King of Tone, and the King of Tone is somewhere. Um, it is not so the Wampler Tumnus and other clones, to my way of thinking, are not mid neutral. A mid neutral pedal would be flat. It would be like a clean boost, and you couldn't change the mids based on the distortion. And it actually probably wouldn't have a tone control. I can't think of a truly mid neutral pedal, but I know the one that gets held up a lot is the Blues Driver, is being mid neutral because it's got kind of a laid back mid range character. And I would agree. I think the Blues Driver is a more mid neutral pedal. I think the Klon is somewhere between the Blues Driver and a Tube Screamer. Probably more towards the Blues Driver side of things. I don't think so. Like the Blues Driver can get harsh in the upper high end. I don't feel like the Klon gets harsh. And I've played Klons through. I had an Archer for a while.
Yeah, the Archer is a good one that I've
For
heard
2
about.
years. I
Who
had
makes
the
the
gold one.
Archer? That's
That's J Rocket.
J Rocket, right? And I've seen the gold one. I've looked at that one quite a few times.
I had the Archer Icon. I had the gold one.
Yep.
And I had it when I had my Fender Princeton. I had it when I had my Rivera. I played it through my Mark 525, and I want to say I even played it through my Katana, but it might have gone by the way at that point. And I liked the pedal a lot. I've played a couple of clones since then that I actually liked more, but I just never. I didn't want more of my guitar. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to color and shape the crap out of it. So I went down the path, and this happened during the show. I went back to a Tube Screamer for a while, and then I got my King of Tone. And I think the King of Tone is similar in the way that it contours your mids. And I know I'm going to get crucified for saying that because not similar in what it does, but similar in that it fits somewhere between a Blues Driver and a Tube Screamer.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. So, like, I would maybe characterize the 250 circuit as being the farthest end of the spectrum because it seems to actually cut some mids. More so than even the Blues Driver, at least to my way of thinking and knowledge. Because it's been a while since I've used one, and I've never put one right next to one another, so I could be wrong on that. But it always just seemed like that was a very raspy circuit, and I actually like the Blues Drivers too. So all of these things are different depending on what context you're using them in. So like if you're going to plug all right, so let's take different scenarios, right? If you're going to use an AC30, the Klon might be kind of cool with an AC30 because it's gonna help control some of that chime. The Tube Screamer is going to be kind of cool with that AC30 because it's definitely going to control some of that chime. The Blues Driver might not be as cool because it's actually going to take out some of the mid-range character to makes those amps cool. Yeah. The 250 is going to push a lot of treble through that AC30. It's kind of like a treble booster in that way. So I kind of like that's and if you were to flip the script and you were to say, okay, so let's go Fender, right? An amp with a scoop mid-range, and we said we're going to use the Klon through it. Well, the Klon's going to push that amp hard. It's going to give it sort of a Marshall-esque flavor, but it's not going to be like super Marshall. Whereas a Tube Screamer is going to make it more Marshall-y because it's got that focus mid-range thing.
Yep.
And then like the Blues Driver will be more like a tweed going through it, and then you're going to have your 250, which will be very, very raspy yet again. The 250 circuit, in my mind, works best through a Marshall. And that's because it does the opposite of what the Marshall is. And this brings me to my actual talking point here. So, just as a general tone tip, one thing I've learned messing with pedals over the years is whatever your amp does, do the opposite with your pedals. And that's not a hard and fast rule, obviously. But I have found a lot of success by taking an amp that's like super mid-rangey, like with a lot of, scoop and not scoop, but like pushed mids. And I'll literally take a 5-band EQ and just drop the mids or a, the Boss G6 or whatever, just drop the mids. And I'll tell you why it works. it's because you're compensating for the fact that the amp is going to push out the stuff, and so you're going to take some of that content out of the guitar and let the amp do it. And you can do it vice versa too. So if it's like a Fender, you want to put that mids back in there.
Right.
And it just changes the characteristics of how the amp responds.
Yeah.
So that's why when you're talking about your Marshalls with you, or not your Marshall, but your Les Paul and stuff, anything with humbuckers, when you talk about the frequency contour of humbuckers, there's this, oh, they got a lot more mids. It's actually sort of true. But what you have to understand is that the humbucker generally has a little bit less bass,
Yeah.
same mid, like more mids, and the treble's about here. In a single coil pickup, you have a lot of mids, but you have a lot more treble, and usually you have a higher bass level.
Yep.
And so it makes it sound like those mids are scooped, but they're not. They're really
Right.
not. So it's a matter of taming that. I think there are circuits that I've seen people using that people don't disclose all the time, like the what they used to call it, the grease bucket circuit or whatever it was,
Oh yeah.
where when you roll down the volume knob a little bit, the the tone, it's like a tone roll off almost,
Yep.
but for the high treble.
Yep.
And I think that kind of stuff on Strats works wonders for certain kinds of amps, because like the Roy Gallagher sound, okay, Stratocaster into AC30 cranked all to hell. I cannot imagine what that would sound like in the front row. I cannot imagine. I've sat in front of enough AC30s and AC15s over my life, playing in clubs and seeing other bands, to know that that sound is going to hurt. It's going to be really,
Painful.
really piercing. So now I've been told that using vintage ones is supposed to account for that. But even that, like, you listen to those records, man, it's all treble. And I kind of wondered, like, was he using a grease bucket type circuit or something in his guitar to, like, make sure that he wasn't
Tame a
beaming
little
and
bit of
killing
that.
the audience? Or was he putting that screen in front of him? Or maybe turning the amp sideways at some gigs so that he wasn't beaming everybody in the audience? Because it would be obnoxious.
Yeah.
The other guy that comes to mind is Johnny Winter. Do you recall Johnny Winter's tone settings, Jim? They're the easiest ones in the world to remember. Stratocaster.
Yep.
Multiple twins. Everything on 10.
Everything up. All the way up. That's what I was doing with my hand. You couldn't see it though. I was doing this. Everything up. It worked for him. You got to wonder. So there was a few things going on back then, other than a lot of these guys being hired kites.
Coily cables is a big one. Everyone always talks about that.
Long coily cables, long ones. We're talking about like I can't remember the blues musician who was famous for having like a 100 or 150 foot cable.
Yeah.
Imagine the tone loss. I don't care how much buffer you've got in there. Imagine the tone loss in that thing. And the other thing that these guys had, because you see it, you'll watch Jimi Hendrix walk up to his Marshall, right? And he's doing his thing, and he's turning it up, right? He's
and
right there.
he will turn. But I've also seen him turn around and turn things down.
Turn things down, right? And what's funny is he'll be standing there, and what's coming out of his guitar and going in there, but a big old curly cable. You know, one of these purple ones. I've got one in the box for you, and so it's funny because he's got what looks to be, because you're standing there, you're like, oh, it's only like a 12-foot cable. No, it's like 40 feet, but it's all curled
like
up.
30 or 40 feet, right?
Yeah. And the other side of it is, remember that a lot of them had killed their high-end hearing from playing loud, so they're kind of turning it up to hear it. That's number two. And the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is that I'm not so sure that, how do I say this? I'm not so sure that the circuits were reflective of, like, if I took a today's circuit and I had a yesterday circuit and today's cabinet, yesterday's cabinet, that I would get the same sound out of it. Do you know what I'm
Nope.
saying?
No.
And that's what.
And that's part of what I was saying about the vintage AC30 thing. It's RoHS compliancy is part of it,
Yep.
but in general, the way that stuff is produced today, you can take a Fender Deluxe circuit. I know somebody who's got a couple of them, and you can compare those to a modern production Fender Deluxe, and they are harsh.
Yep.
What I know it's a generalization. People are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, your cork's nothing now." Listen, let me tell you something. There's a reason that the guys from the '60s and '70s who buy the reissue amps have them gutted and replaced with
Right.
new old stock parts, and the like the turret board construction and all that, because it makes a difference. Those amps, and it's not just the speaker's a big part of it, but those amps were not harsh, even off the factory floor back then, because you can hear them on records, right?
Right.
And you can, so like classic example, people are like, oh well, they don't record records the same way they used to. That's true, but think about like Lenny Kravitz. So Lenny Kravitz records a record that sounds like the '60s. People think that some of the stuff that's on that record was recorded by Jimi Hendrix. That has been a problem. People have said, "Oh, well, that's a Hendrix tune."
Well,
No.
I can tell you this because I was a big Kravitz fan, and I can tell you that there were many times I was like,
That sounds very similar, right?
that sounds like that much. Did he literally lift that from, insert Hendrix tune from here? Especially at that time, I was listening to a lot of Hendrix,
And not
and
all that stuff was done on vintage correct amps and that kind of thing. So it's not just studio trickery.
right,
That's my point.
right,
If there is some magic to that sound in the recording,
that's right,
and
and and he had access to a lot of stuff. Um,
for
that
sure, for sure.
yeah, we won't even get into, but um,
But I think your point though, I think you hit the nail on the head. That stuff doesn't sound the same now that it does back then because there have been changes.
yeah,
And it's not just changes like component values on the circuit board change, but just like what shit's made out of,
yeah,
and whether it's a circuit board versus a solder lead, or how they wrap the wires together for the power supply.
yep,
All of that crap matters in an
yeah,
amp.
yeah.
People think it doesn't, but it does.
It does. And let's talk a little bit about there's always this person you'll see, I don't care, you insert YouTube personality here, who will go to a studio and go, "Oh, I had a chance to play through David Gilmour's rig or, whoever's rig." And they go, "Holy shit. I I never thought that amplifier would sound that way." They'll say, "Oh, well, I've got 10 of them," and they don't sound like that. And the fact of the matter is that I don't think, for a minute, I don't think that it's the same. The magnets aren't the same. The cones aren't the same because the paper that's going into the cone isn't the same. The wood is definitely not the same. And don't tell me there's no such thing as a tone wood with a cabinet, because then I'll
No,
slap you upside the head.
because I'll take my acoustic guitar off the wall and I'll strum it and I'll go, "Is yours made out of this wood?"
Yeah,
'Cause that's going to
exactly.
make a big damn difference. You can take two acoustic guitars with the same tone wood and they'll sound totally different.
That's right.
You
And
know,
so that does make a difference. And where that amp, they were putting these things together by hand back then. That's all, we could go on for days. And you would get these folks, these musicians, let's say you're Clapton, you walk in, they give you 12 of them and they say, "Which one do you like the best? Take that one home." And so if they all sound the same, they just ship it to them. There you go. There's one.
I
Ow.
think I think in modern production amplifier, so we're talking about this kind of stuff. We're talking about amps that were available back then. But I think like a 5150 from the '90s is going to sound just as decent as a
Yeah.
5150 produced
Yes.
last year, like a
Right.
6505.
Yep.
But here's the reality of the difference there. Um, do they have the original tubes?
Right.
That's a big question. And have the transformers changed? Because those are going to be huge impacts on the sound. But like overall, I'm not going to say they're going to change all that much because the circuit board is still a circuit board. The the layout of the components might have changed a little bit, but the components are probably still the same components.
Yep.
And that's really like the biggest component issue in that kind of thing, because you're looking at a head cab situation. The cabinet will be different, sure, but then you're not evaluating the sound of the cabinet, you're evaluating the sound of the amplifier, because you can plug it into a number of different cabinets. And then that's where things in that start to break down. But when people talk about like an old deluxe reverb, like a 66 or something that it's just been kicked around for years, it's all beat up and it sounds freaking amazing, it's not because the amp weathered in. Okay, that's part of it. That is definitely part of it, because the wood's going to dry out, the speaker cone's going to dry out, the speaker may get replaced. Like, that's going to be part of it. It may have been modified along the path. Maybe somebody swapped out a resistor for a different value because it's all they had at the time, and it worked well in the circuit, so they went with it. That stuff happens too, but I will tell you, in general, the older amplifiers I've heard do not sound like new production stuff. And I don't care if it's some amplifier company claiming to clone those circuits and get those sounds. Like, I have yet to come across, and I'm not saying it isn't possible. Like, there's companies like Headstrong that claim to do it. Like an amp, because I'm more familiar with the USA side of things, because they're easier to find vintage USA amps here. Find me an old deluxe and then compare it to the 57 deluxe reissue, because I can tell you right now, they're not the same at
I was
all.
just, you know what? So my friend that I know very well, who I was hanging out with tonight, before this, we were talking about his last night. I was over at his house. We were sitting down and talking, and we were talking about just what you're saying. We're talking about his old deluxe. He's had the same deluxe since, I think, pretty much when they started making Fender Deluxes. He's had it since the 70s.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know. I was like, they were making Deluxes back then? Really? I didn't know that. And I was like, wow. And
is it a tweed, or is it a silver face or blackface?
Blackface.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah.
old.
They have deluxes and deluxe reverbs. Yeah. The deluxes are kind of cool.
And so his deluxe is from way back then. I thought it was just like a blues deluxe, like you buy a Guitar Center stuff, but it's not. And it's only been retubed once, and it was like in 74, 76, somewhere in there when he got it retubed, because some guy said, "Oh, your tubes are dying on you." He put in new tubes, and I think he bought it new in 72, or secondhand in 72 or something. So it's an old one. And this is the point. It sounds like no other deluxe I've ever heard. Because I thought, oh, I'll get a deluxe, and I was like, no, nothing.
Now you know why I've been telling you. If I'm getting a deluxe reverb, I'm gonna spend.
I'm buying an old one, right?
Yeah, because they're not the same thing.
And a reissue is not going to do it.
I used to think you could buy the 65 reissue and like get away with it, but I kind of like, it's so harsh, because that's what I had. My problem with my Princeton was it's freaking harsh. I made friends with a guy on Twitch.
Yeah, the Princetons to me are just. Go ahead.
The
Sorry.
70s and 60s Princetons do not
Oh,
sound
really
like
good.
the ones they're putting
Right.
out today.
Right.
They're not harsh. They don't have that thing going on around 3,000 to 4,000 hertz that's just annoying to hear, and they don't have all that fizz at the top end. And that is not the speaker. There's something going on in the circuit, and it may be the transformers. I would be willing to bet that the transformers they're using in those amps today are probably higher spec, meaning that they're like within tighter tolerances. But the reality is the ones with the shittier transformers probably sound better.
Yeah.
Because they were overwound. It's the same thing as the pickups. Somebody goes out and has a cigarette, machine keeps going.
Comes back and whoops.
Oh shit! How am I going to get the housing on here? Oh, we'll make it fit.
Yeah, I don't think that shit doesn't happen.
Well, it's only up. It's only 4 ohm off. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's only gonna.
The secondary transformer is only dropping a little bit less. It's fine.
Yeah, it's no big deal. Nobody will know.
We're just
put it on the truck. Ship it over to Fender. Those guys will love it.
They never notice.
But if you're like, that's another thing, is that back then that kind of stuff happened more because that was before the manufacturers themselves were speccing some of these parts. Like Fender would go through the parts manual and like pick out like, oh yeah, we're going to use these transformers and this and this and this, instead of calling them up and being like, we need a transformer with these specs and designing the transformer. See,
Yep.
like now it's flipped. It's gone the other way. The production houses are doing that side of the industry.
Yep.
And so because of that shift, it's changed all of this stuff. Like, for example, when Ken Fisher was doing it, Trainwreck,
Yep.
when they started doing it, him specifically, he was speccing the Transformers in the mid '80s, and like there were other companies doing it that time, like Mason Boogie had started doing that, and I know at that time Paul Rivera had done it for Fender, so it wasn't like unheard of, but it was usually big companies or companies that like had a legitimate following. So you got this guy calling up, I forgot what the name of his company was, but could you imagine like calling like Haybor or somebody like that and being like, yeah, I need a transformer with 250,000 lines of, like,
Yep.
and that was basically what was going on with him, and his transformers were spec'd and very specific, and I believe he was actually making some of his own. So that's really the difference, is like even just the component construction of these things was just the tolerances weren't there. They didn't exist.
That's right.
So anyway, we had another topic we wanted to cover tonight. Maybe we should switch gears.
What was
You had something else?
I think I talked about it. The hipsters all using gosh darn guitars that I didn't care about in their
right.
freaking videos.
Let's talk more about that, because
let's talk about that. Like, I mean, I think it's cool that you want to own. I'm not putting down someone that wants to own some freaking off the wall Nova or whatever, but it speaks to like four people. And you talked about it too. You know what, that adds to it. Robert Baker, I'll give you an example. And again, geez, the first thing people think is, oh, you said Robert Baker's name, you're going to talk about negative stuff, so you can't stand Robert Baker. No, I'm not putting Robert Baker down. Just saying,
I'm on his mailing list.
Right. I'm yeah.
I get harassed with his mail all the time.
So and I watch his channel all the time. So the thing is, so here's Robert Baker, right? He puts out a video, and like he just did the SG video. I thought it was pretty good, and he was like, "Yeah, the SG's staying, right?" Remind me to tell you a Gibson / Fender joke here in a minute, because I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about this. But anyway, so Robert will play, and it's like and he's ripping it up, and he's just playing a standard. He's playing the same thing I got right here, right? He's playing a standard SG, and he's ripping it up, and I'm like, cool. But I also know he's got 9 amps, and I don't know what IRs, and he doesn't say anything about a signal chain. And it's like, I don't know anything about your signal chain. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know if you're using pedals.
Usually he's using an Axe-Fx.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. I know he has that. I know he has Rev. I know he has, a bunch of heads. I know he's got all these pedals.
And I want to be the first to say, like, the guy, kudos to people who do this, who say, this is my clean signal. Play a couple chords, and then they play the thing. Because that's at least better. But that's still not right either.
Right. Because I have a frame of reference of what your clean signal is, but I don't know what that came from. Does that make sense?
We've talked about this on the show before. Like, use one of the 4 archetypical guitars.
Right.
Use a Strat, a Tele, a Les Paul, or an SG.
Right.
I mean, really, you can't go wrong with one of those 4 guitars. Try to use a major brand version of it.
Yep.
So in other words, like, if you're going to use a Strat, use a Fender. If you're going to use a Tele, use a Fender. If you're going to use a Les Paul, use a Gibson. If you're going to use an SG, use a Gibson. And the only reason I say that is because we're all familiar with those sounds. Mm-hmm. It's like when Wampler talks about, what amp do I use to design my amp in a box pedals? And he says, the Hot Rod Deluxe, because everybody has one.
Because everybody's got a Hot Rod Deluxe.
And like, it's not rocket science. And I'm gonna talk about JHS a little bit, but like, I don't know how many videos I've seen of Josh's, and I'm gonna talk to about him the next time I see him. I don't know how many videos I've seen where he's playing a build. And
Not
I'm
only is
like,
he
dude,
playing the built, he's playing through that special. I mean, he's playing through a $3,000 amp. Because I looked,
oh, I don't.
I was like, huh?
The
The
milkman
more
thing
is
just
more. No, he plays
it's
through
just
his. It's a
it's a
milkman,
milkman.
right?
It's a
Yeah,
milkman.
yeah.
It's
But it's
his amp, but
JHS.
it's a
Yeah,
milkman.
yeah.
Um,
And it's called the more is more or something.
yeah,
Because you can
loud
buy
is
it. You can
more
buy
good.
that JHS more is more on
Loud is
Sweetwater.
more good.
Loud is more
It's
good.
loud is
That's it.
more good.
Loud is more good.
But so look, I don't have a problem with that so much as because you can hear the clean signal and then but like the build, that is a weird effing guitar, like
Yeah,
straight up
yeah,
weird, homicidally weird guitar, and like gold foil pickups. I know there are a lot of people that's like their jam right now is like the gold foil and like a lot of pickups of that ilk. But man, when I hear you doing that in the video, I'm like, I don't know what those pickups sound like. That's not
right,
something I've ever been after. And I'm not going to go seek it out so that I can enjoy your video
right.
or be able to make an informed buying decision about your product or somebody because JHS kind of gets a pass for the whole like influencer thing because that's a company.
Right.
They're selling other companies' pedals. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's kind of crazy,
He does a whole
but
Behringer line thing, or he'll do a whole, Dan
right
Electro line thing, or whoever.
because he's an enthusiast too. But like, listen, I understand that some of it's about building your brand, and like being very clear to your audience, like we live, eat, and breathe this stuff, and
Yep.
until like you accept that, we're gonna do it this way. But like
Yep.
the built thing, I mean, so
So who built
Supro,
the
I
built?
it's a company built.
Oh,
Um,
I thought that
they
was
make like the Revelator. They make a couple other pedal. They make a couple other guitars. They make a Teleclone and
that tells you how
um.
out of touch I am with the freaking hipster guitars. I
Well,
didn't know that was a brand.
they're not super popular, right? They're not a big brand like that everybody knows about. Um, but it would be like I mean, nobody would expect you to demo all your stuff with a Silvertone,
Right.
or an Eastman. Which I've seen Ryan do that too, and I'm like, man, there's a very specific group of people that know what that sounds like, and that's a super specific group of people because most people are more familiar with Strats, Tellys, Les Pauls, and SGs,
Right. And
and maybe a 335.
right. And that's where it gets a little disingenuous because you're here to represent the brand, whatever guitar, whatever amplifier or pedal or whatever you're showing off, right? And yeah, those guitars don't do anything for me. Um, so
It's a
if you're,
headstock. Ugh.
yeah, the headstocks are just fugly. I'm sorry.
Not my
I
thing.
just
Definitely not my
no,
thing.
no. I always said that. I always thought that when I saw JHS's headstock, I was like, "What the heck is he?" And he always, I mean, he loves the guitar, and I get it. It's your thing, man. That's your bag, You like, you like ketchup on your potato chips, and other people don't. I mean, I get it.
I'm
But
gonna admit it. I'm gonna admit a couple things. Like I don't. I've played Jazz Masters.
mm,
I've played Mustangs. I've played what's the other one? The
Jaguar.
the Jaguar. I've played all three of those guitars multiple times,
Yep.
and I honestly can't tell you that I know what they sound like.
Nope.
And it's just because it's just not my bag. Like I don't play them all the time. I don't play them every day. And for me, when I see a video where somebody's like, "I'm gonna play this on my Fender Mustang," I'm like,
Yippee.
click, find me something else because it just doesn't do any. It's not going to inform me whether I do or not. And the other one, here's the culprit that I'm gonna kind of call out though a little bit. And Henning Pauly
Yeah. Yep.
because he often uses uh what's the guitars from Toman, Harley Benton's,
Harley Benton.
and I'm like, dude. You're not doing anybody any favors. I'm remember that phrase from earlier in the episode?
Right.
Good for the price.
Right.
For the price. And I will say that like the ones that I've played, I did not think the pickups were great. And I'll be completely honest, I don't think you're getting an accurate representation of what that guitar is going to sound, or what that effect or whatever he's now amp is going to sound like.
No. And here's the we get back to that ingredient in the soup. For those who think we're just blowing out smoke out our asses here, it's the ingredient in the soup. This is a great analogy. I go and I buy some Idaho potatoes, right? Not the box of Idaho potatoes. I'm not talking about those. I go buy some Idaho potatoes, right? I go to Five Guys, and I get Five Guys Idaho potatoes, and I tell them I just want a bag of, which you can do, by the way. You can go to Five Guys, buy a bag of potatoes. So if I go to Five Guys and I buy a bag of potatoes, you know exactly what day they came from, you know all this other stuff, and you know
The farm and
Yep. You know what shit went into the ground. You know everything about those.
You can buy peanuts by the bag there too.
That's right. I often do. So let's take the potato analogy. So I put the potato into all of my ingredients. Then I go to a store. Let's say you're from my area, and I say, you know what? I went to Food Lion and I grabbed these things and I put them in my soup. So if you went to Food Lion and you got those things, you could put them in your soup. Okay? And you went, you know what? Jim bought this oregano, and he bought these potatoes, and he bought these things, right? And these tomatoes and this broth. Stirred it all up, heated it for 25 minutes at 3, on a stove.
My wife was wearing our lovely
I saw that.
PR1W T-shirt.
Oh, well, she should.
I wanted to point it out. Maybe she should come in here. Maybe she should come in and show off the PR1W.
Oh.
In the women's flavor.
There you go. She needs to come towards your head. Yes. You need to move out of the way. There you go.
Get it framed.
Our lovely. There you go. Our lovely model. A little more to your right. Her right. I need it. It. There you go. Right there. Yep.
Yes,
nope.
Right there.
That's it. Yay.
All right. Thank you. I couldn't help but notice she walked in the room and I saw the PR1W and I was like, get over here.
It was a lot better. It was a lot better than I would have looked at it.
I have one and it's shrunk. So I will warn you, if you're ordering one, order a size larger.
I did. I ordered 2 sizes larger.
I think I'm going to do the same.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? So if I put all these ingredients together, you have an idea of what that potato sounds. So if you decide you're going to go with russets or you're going to go with other, you know the base taste and you know what you can go to from that. But if I gravitate towards some weird potato, I had this potato imported from Austria.
Does it taste like vodka?
Yeah, and it was it was grown, in the fields of vodka, and as a matter of fact, that's what they use potatoes right over there.
I know.
Vodka. Yeah, they use potatoes.
But that's not Austria, that's Russia. But anyway.
Yeah. So they're used in a rare known vodka, and I had a friend send me a 5-pound bag, and it cost me $100 to get it shipped over here, and I waited 3 weeks, and these potatoes, and I had to cut off all the parts, and they have this particular flavor, right? I'm gonna drop them in. Now you don't know what that soup tastes like, because when I said when I'm telling you should buy this oregano, and then you buy potatoes, but you can't go get the bag of potatoes. You're not gonna spend $100 on a bag of potatoes. So you're not going to buy that bag of potatoes anyway. You're going to go to the store and you're going to get the ones that Food Lion has. So you grab the ones at Food Lion, you bring them home, you put them in the soup, and you go, "This is too bland. This tastes like shit." And you're going to say, "Jim, your recipe tastes like shit." But you come to my house and you have it, and you go, "Wow, it tastes good." You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And there's more to it than that, but I'm just saying that it's an ingredient in a whole stew. Now let's talk about the fact that if I have a bunch of ingredients that don't have anything to do with it, so we'll go back to sound. We'll go back to the guitar. So I have a guitar that when I turn it up, it sounds a certain way. When I roll it back, it sounds a certain way. When I hit it hard, it sounds a certain way. When I hit it soft, it sounds a certain way. And then I throw pedal A in it, you have no idea what that's going to sound like with your guitar. None. I think if you're buying, like, if you own a budget guitar, you should watch channels that use budget guitars with the thing you're going to get.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think the other component to remember though is that touch and feel also play a huge role in a lot of this stuff, and just remember that like I don't buy stuff off demo videos, and I can use a demo video to kind of get what I'm interested in. I buy stuff that I think is sort of a sure bet.
Yep.
And then I get it home, and a lot of times I play it, and I have returned things because they were not what I wanted. And if you can get a relationship with a local store, albeit a big box retailer or whatever, where you can buy things, take them home, try them out, bring them back,
Yep.
you're going to be a lot happier in the long run, because I think a lot of this stuff is so user preference based that just having the option to do that is going to be helpful to you over, just like trying to seek out demo videos. I can't
Absolutely
downplay
right.
that the demo video is good because it exists.
Yep.
Actually, you know what? We haven't talked about it. That Thomann service. Have you heard that thing? So Thomann put up a service now where you can go to their
Oh,
list of
yeah.
pedals that they're, and it is literally actually streaming audio through real pedals. And it has like some sort of controller chip interface where they wired it to the pots so that you can actually manipulate the knobs via a GUI on their website.
Isn't that crazy?
It is wild.
And it is awesome.
And it is almost sold me a couple pedals. I'll be real. Like, there have been a couple things where I was playing around in there and I'm like, okay, I'll bite. This is legitimately like game changing in terms of being able to try something out online.
That is the biggest game changer and probably the closest you will ever come to actually having your hands on a pedal
without having your hands on the pedal.
That's right.
Now, here's the thing to remember though when you're playing around with this is it does not tell you what the pedal feels like.
You know what else it won't tell you? It won't tell you, well, there's two more things. Physically, what it'll be like on your board. Okay. I mean, most people can figure it out, but I'll tell you, the Ratsbane is like this big. That thing is.
Oh yeah,
it's super small.
It's a finger enclosure.
enclosure. Yeah, it's this size. It's just a little bit bigger than this. As this is my the side.
But you know what's funny? When you put the cables on it, it's still basically the same damn size.
Yeah. Once you start sticking cables, that's what I don't get about mini pedals.
What a waste of time.
You still need to leave enough room between the two pedals. You got to have your toe in a right. Okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I know, dude. Don't get me started. Mini pedals are like, just put it in a bigger housing. Like, what the hell?
You know what's gonna happen is he's gonna come out with a full size one. I'm gonna sell this one and get that one. But anyway,
yeah, and it'll have more control over it, right? Like you'll be like, yeah, the full size one's way better.
Well, like the Tumnus, I got the deluxe. That's why I showed the picture there
right
earlier. Because I got the deluxe because it's a full size and I've got a little bit more control over the features. But anyway, we were talking about the thing. It won't tell you about the physical layout. That's number one. Because that's another thing about mini pedals. If the cable is pulling the pedal or pushing it, it has a tendency to do this. Like it'll go. I'll get my hand in here. It'll go like this. Because the tension, you can only get so much Velcro on a pedal that's this big, and I don't care how hard you push that stuff in and lock it tight.
When I put, and I don't have Velcro sitting in front of me. I actually had some the other day, but I put a tilting whole strip that runs the entire length of the pedal.
I did, yeah.
Because all you can do.
Yeah, and it tilts a little bit. It's like.
Jim.
So I had to put it where there's no pressure. Even pressure.
You need dual.
I have dual. I'm using dual. It's the pedal is so small. It's not that it's pulling away from the board. It's literally just like tilting, like the top of it's moving. Right, it's still locked down, but it's just tilting.
Yeah, right to left. Yeah.
And of course, when you try to lock it down, you're pushing it down to get it locked in, and then you got to make sure it's like sitting just right when you do that, because usually you hook up the wires first, then plug it in. It's like, but anyway, so there's that. And then the other side of it is that you don't get, and I think this is probably this might be something you were talking about as far as feel goes.
Yeah, because that's a big deciding factor in whether I keep a pedal or not.
Response, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, you're gonna laugh. The one pedal that I really really liked on there was the Strymon El Cap.
But I don't think you can get any closer than what they show in there. I honestly don't think
They're not show.
remotely.
They're literally they show
You
you
are.
how it works. There's literally pedals sitting in the rack that you're being ran through. I mean,
Yeah,
it's wild.
it's
I've never
crazy.
thought I never thought somebody would go to that level to like actually achieve that, but it just shows you how much Toman makes off of pedals.
Yeah. Well,
'Cause they're
there's a
like,
lot of money to be
it's sell
made.
more.
Yeah. There's a lot of money in most of your pedals. And that's, you know what's funny? Um, a lot of people don't realize that. So there's more money in a slightly more expensive pedal. Okay? That should come without saying. That should go without saying. But when a company can blow out a pedal, say like $30, those is it TC Electronics? They
Yeah,
have those cheap ones, the Blood Moon and the
that's
Cinders and everything else.
because there's no R&D in those.
No, there's no R&D. So
They were
there's
developed years ago.
but there's very little overhead in that. Believe it or not, it doesn't do the company that's selling to you, whether it's a mom and pop or a big firm like Toman. There's very little money in that.
Yeah.
So the truth of the matter is, they'd rather sell you an $80 pedal or a $90 pedal than a $50 pedal, because there's a lot more money in the $80 $90 pedal. And the other side of it is, you wouldn't think so, but there is. And the other side of it is that you're getting slightly better. You're getting much better, not slightly better. You're getting much better components. You're getting tighter tolerances.
There's definitely diminishing returns at a certain point, though.
Yes. I don't want to go into the $400 pedals or anything like that.
Right. I think at some point you get to this level where it's like, okay, you better hope you get your $400 worth when you buy a Vemoram. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? And I've had expensive pedals. So
You have
like,
one.
I
Your
have one
Ethos,
right now.
right?
I'm looking. It's nearby somewhere, but I don't have it in hand.
What is it called?
I like
The
to hold. I like to hold it up and pretend that I'm, like the monkey in the Lion King.
like you're real. Yeah, like you've got great
Circle
money. Yeah.
of life, because
Yeah.
it came back to me. It is circular.
Circle of life. Yeah, it's one of those things that.
It's underneath my Mesa Boogie hat.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah,
It's the circle of life.
yeah, and that pedal. Put that right in front of us again. Just put it right in front of your face again. So, yeah, there you go.
Look
Perfect.
how many knobs and switches. That's what I'm paying for.
That is. And you paid. So the base model of that was how much? If you
The
didn't
base
get
the base model, I think, is, let's look. Custom tones.
is it like 325 or something like that? Then it goes like,
No, it's higher.
okay.
The base model is higher, dude. So that pedal, I think we counted, has like 13 knobs and switches on it, or 14 knobs and switches. And the base
I don't know
price
if I
is
have
gonna be
that many
about
knobs and switches on
$5
my-
a piece. So 5 times 13, you're starting to see where the money's at. All right, so prices. Now, not all the stuff that Custom Tones Inc. does is expensive either.
This is riveting shit, people.
Yeah, I know.
Let me
Hey,
tell you
tell 'em to
right
get a
now.
tell them to get a better website.
Yeah.
So the Ethos
Listen to a better
Overdrive.
podcast, you idiots.
the Ethos Overdrive preamp starts at $400 plus shipping and handling.
There you go.
Handling. I have the TLA Classic Switch for an additional $79. I have the FX Loop for an additional $89. I have the HRM EQ for an additional $109, and the HRM Bypass Switch for $37, bringing the grand total price of this pedal loaded to, I believe, $650 or $750.
Oh my god. And I complain because of how much my pedal board is worth. And
Yeah,
and the
my one
cost.
pedal is probably worth the cost of some people's pedal boards. I mean,
Yeah.
like, that's not even,
Oh, it's more than
which makes me a total snob, but that's
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, if you
I
think
use this
about
thing
it,
all the time.
would you say 650, 700? So let's say it was 650. Let's say it was
700,
700
713. I
with
did not
shipping.
pay that because
Okay.
I bought it a couple years ago. I paid
Yeah.
$650 for it,
All
but
right.
it's $713
All
to
right.
me.
Let's say it was with shipping and tax or whatever. Let's say it's about 750. We'll round it up to make it easier, right? 750. Let's put that in perspective. That's seven $100 boards, or I mean $100 pedals,
Yep.
and a power supply. Not a good one, a cheap one, like
Yep.
like the ganging what do you call that? Ones.
Well, you do get you do get a one
Yeah.
power supply,
See, because
and
I
it
was
is very
including the power
specific
supply.
to this unit. This is a 12. You got to hear the shenanigans here. This is a 12-volt DC 500 milliamp unregulated, and it's very specifically unregulated DC transformer
And what's the
because
center? Is it negative center, positive center?
it's regular center, I think, or
Okay,
regular. So I think
positive
it's
center.
yeah, positive center.
Yeah, that's typically the
No,
center of a
positive sleeve,
positive sleeve,
center
negative
negative,
center.
center
Yeah,
negative.
negative
Yeah.
center. That's what I meant. Yeah. So, all right. So let's put that in perspective. All right. So if you had $150 pedals, which is a good, not a great pedal, good pedals, right? That's most of your pedals, $150 to $200. That pedal does how many things for you? What does it do for you?
It's basically an amp in a box. I mean,
It's an
it
amp.
literally is an amplifier without a power amp.
You could put that
Um,
into an IR and run that.
yeah. Well, it has speaker emulation on it,
Oh, well, there you go.
so
You
you
can go
just
right
need a
to the.
reverb. You need a
Yeah.
reverb. I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically it.
All right. So you've got an amp in a box. So it's kind of, I mean, I don't want to say it's worth it, but it's worth it.
Well,
It
for me, it is. I mean, I'm not gonna if you're not unless you're into the whole Dumble thing, it's probably not worth it for you.
right,
And that's kind of where like it's taken me a long time to come around to the fact that I really enjoy the sound of that particular circuit.
right.
And I have had the Dude, and I have a clone of a Zen Drive, and none of those things does that sound.
Now, would
Well,
you
I mean, the
plug?
Dude is really, really close. To be honest, when I had the Dude, the only difference was the Dude had like way more bass, and it wasn't as touch sensitive, and you couldn't dial in like the mids and stuff in the same way. So
Right.
I think I got more features out of this. Plus, I like the cabinet emulation, and I've got all the other stuff to make it just like an amp, including the loop.
Now, I was going to say, would you use that direct, or have you ever put that into your
I've used it on my live
effects
stream
loop?
direct. I've used it on my live stream direct, and I don't think people even realized I was using it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Because I mean, it sounds good. Like even without an IR, it sounds good. So, would I recommend other people go out and do this? Hell no. But I lusted after this pedal for years before I bought one. Like I legitimately watched the used market and was watching who was using them, and like they ebbed and flowed. When I first started following along, they were at like a 6-month wait time, and then all of a sudden, like a couple of years later, I look and they're like, "Order now," and I'm like, "Oh, how about that?" And I was like, "It's still pretty damn expensive because it was like $370 at the time," but I was like, you know what? It was around my 5th anniversary. I'm going into my 10-year anniversary, so I've been with this thing for 5 years now.
Yeah.
And
With a
I talked to
short.
my wife, and she said, "Just go ahead and get one." So I
Yep.
got one,
And
and
not
then I
you and your
sold it and
wife.
bought it back.
That's what I was going to say. Not you and your wife, but you and the pedal had a short separation,
Yeah,
and then you
we, had
realized
we,
the love was still there.
yeah, we made a mistake.
I'm sorry.
We started seeing other guitars, and
And other pedals.
yeah, but she came back to me, so it's all good. You know what they say? If you love something, let it go, and if it comes back, then it's yours.
It's funny. I don't know if you remember, but I had for a short period. I had a this kind of brings us towards the end of the show anyway. So I'll talk
It
about
is
something
definitely towards the end of the show. I can feel it.
that left me and was and so tonight when I was out at the open mic, I I saw a guitar on stage. I was like, the guitar that one of the guys was playing was the Phil Collins model that I used to have.
Remember that guitar?
Yep. It's a great guitar and it sounds great in his hands. It didn't sound great with me. I didn't bond with it. Now that said, it's a killer guitar. It's Phil Collins, full on Phil Collins, made in Japan. I don't remember the one he did some mods to it. Made it sound really good. And then what did he do? He was playing it through an acoustic amp, not an acoustic guitar amp, the
But an
brand
acoustic
name
amplifier,
acoustic
yeah.
amp, and it
Hey.
sounded like a wet blanket, like somebody pissed on a blanket and then threw the blanket over the amplifier. It was so bad.
Great.
I hate those amps. I hate. Let me. Is everybody listening? Am I? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I fucking hate those amps, like really bad. They
Jim, I don't think you
suck.
like those amps very much.
No, yeah. I probably no. I don't not like them. I fucking hate them. I mean, they're just awful, just awful. I have never heard anybody get a good tone, including that guy, out of that amp. It just sounds like a woolly blanket. If you're looking for a really good, budget amp, don't buy one of those fucking things. I don't care if
Was
it's
it
on sale for
was it
$20.
one of the was it one of the reissue ones, or was it one of the originals?
No, it's one of the brand new ones, and
Oh yeah.
it was a 2x12. It was as big as my Fender
Well,
Twin.
more speakers is more important than the quality of the actual amplifier. Didn't you hear?
I wanted to say to him, I wanted to say, you want me to drive home, grab my Twin, and put it up there because you'll sound like 10 times better.
Do you know what kills me? So this is my final thought of the show. When somebody thinks that having the Marshall solid state head, the MG head, the 100-watt, with a 4x12 or two 4x12 cabinets on stage is superior to spending the same amount of money to get a Marshall, whatever combo
Yep.
with tubes.
Yep.
That's like, for the same amount of money, because you can get the MG. I think the 412 cabinets are $250 a piece, so that's $500. The head itself, I believe, is $400. So that would be, you're looking at $900. You can get a lot of Marshall for $900.
Yeah,
either
and
used
for-
or new with
That's right.
tubes.
For a
And
little less
sound
money,
great.
that's right. For a little less money, you could get the DSL 40C or
Yeah,
$750.
you could save $250. Buy yourself a
right.
nice tuner.
That's right. Buy yourself something nice, as cousin Eddie
Yeah.
said in Christmas Vacation.
Buy yourself
something nice, Clark.
you need to buy yourself something real nice, Clark.
Myself something real nice.
Uh,
That was so funny. I almost died when he did that. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he just did that."
Do you know what's funny?
It's
is
such
like,
a funny movie.
No, I'm not going to go there because I'm not going to go there. There's too much similarity between that person and other people in my life that.
Oh yeah, he's definitely my brother Leon. He's my brother Leon all the way through. Shitter's full.
All right, I've been David,
I've been Jim.
and tonight we've been the Practical Guitarists.
Yes, we have. Cue the music.